figured it out. I figured it out, guys. This whole time, all I needed was a little cloth up here to kind of give myself a lenser to the camera. And now I can wave my hands all around like Jim Cramer without the aperture going in and out. Things are looking good on the lighting side of the Swaggelhouse YouTube channel. Unlike things on the comic book value side, because things are still looking bad. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggelhouse. And in this one, we got ourselves an update to the comic book index for the month of September. Now, I thought to myself, hey, I should probably do one of those now is the time to buy jokes again. And then I realized I've been doing the same stupid joke for the last 6 months. I can't even pretend to do it. I can't even pretend to think that it's funny anymore. It's just not. Because here we are, once again. I'm already giving away spoilers. You guys know what's going to happen to the updates here. We've set new records in every index. I'm going to get you by the time we get there. You're going to be in for a little bit of a surprise. But, of course, before I get into that, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I appreciate it. Helps support the channel doing those things. But let us get into this video here today. Now, you guys know what the comic book index is. It is the top 100 books sold per age. I take a look at silver, bronze, and copper. I take the highest volume of grade that is sold. That's the one that I count. I take the final sale of each month, aka the market close, and I get all of my info from GPA data. Suffice to say, if I was going to take the top 100 most in-demand, most sought-after books and buy them every single month, how much would it actually cost me to do so? Now, really quick, this is just information. You guys do realize that when I'm saying like now is the time to buy and I'm doing like this and like, oh, it's going up, it's going down. You guys realize it's all a joke, right? Are we on the same page about this? Sometimes in the comments, I feel like maybe I'm just too dry. Maybe I'm just too dry. Comic books never go down. All right, well, let's kick it off with the Silver Age Index. Last month, we went down. Remember that? We went from $42,368 in July down to $36,645, one of the biggest drops for the comic book index in Silver Age since probably that of 2023, certainly the biggest drop of the year. And it looked like, while things were starting to, maybe turn around or stabilize, we really did fall off the cliff. Comic book collectors went on vacation this last month. Well, did they come back? Did they go into their eBay accounts and start buying all those books in their carts? Well, it looks like they did the same thing, because here in the month of September, we went to $36,646, up by a whopping $1. Don't say that comic books never appreciate in value. They go up by dollar. Let's make no mistake about it. That is the lowest number, tied for the lowest number that we've seen in the last 3.5 years. You actually have to go all the way back to October now of 2020 in order to kind of find ourselves at levels of what we're hitting for the Silver Age comic book. So pretty interesting to see that. And again, if we take a step back and we just look at what is the macro trend, well, the trend is your friend, right? I mean, we are still going down ever since that of the height of COVID of 2021. But let's save the bigger talking points for later on in the video. Let's check in now with the Bronze Age Index. There in the month of August, we were actually up to 33,181. Every time you get an up month for Bronze Age, it's always very impressive to me, especially since we had, been kind of, getting higher highs, so to speak, for the Bronze Age Index. Well, where did we go here in the month of September? And oh God, we got a chart buster going all the way down to $31,120, the lowest total we have seen for this index since the beginning of COVID. You would have to go all the way back to around August of 2020 to see, this value range. And, it makes me start to wonder, if you go look at the chart and you look at, around March 2020 or April 2020, when things kind of got a little hotter in the Bronze Age, I sort of wonder if maybe it was as early as that month that things started to get inflated for this index. Perhaps we have to reevaluate the trend line overall, which is actually something I'm going to do later on in this video, but we're not there yet. We have to talk about the Copper Age Index. Last month in August, we were at 22,593. Copper Age, had been even Steven. I mean, slightly a little more down overall since the beginning of the year, but generally speaking, it's been consistent. Well, where do we go here in the month of September? And, 22,498, slightly down, maybe $100, but that's really generally a push, I would call. And so, it's fairly consistent here in the Copper Age Index. And, there's something I feel like I want to talk about with that, where it's, while things aren't necessarily going up with Copper Age, I mean, look at 2018 through 2019, it never really went up, but at the same time, it feels like the demand is always there. Like there are always people, on the nostalgia trip wanting to pick up their Jim Lee X-Men #1. And so, while it doesn't necessarily appreciate, and of course, certainly when you factor in inflation, it definitely doesn't appreciate, but at the same time, at least the demand side is there. It's just that the supply side prevents it from actually going up. Well, there you see the three indexes side by side, but let's zoom in now to the key takeaways and just go through the numbers quickly before we give, kind of the macro thoughts. Well, in the Silver Age of August, we were at 36,645, going to 36,646, again, up by $1, which I think is fair to call a push. For Bronze Age, August, 33,181, September, 31,120, a decrease of 6%, one of the biggest drops for the Bronze Age this year. And then for Copper Age, 22,498, like I said, down $100. We're going to call that one a push. Now, for zooming in here, for silver book values, we had 15% down this month, a pretty hefty number that actually went down 8% up. And of course, the big factor, the non-sale, 30% non-sale factor, people just not looking to buy these slabs right now. People just not looking for the graded comic book. They probably want to buy the raw version instead, especially if we're talking about, the books that are the most out there, the ones that are, the most available, the mid-grade range of your ASM 50s, the mid-grade range of your Fantastic Four 48s. I mean, if you're looking to buy in that grade window, you're probably eyeing a raw copy because you're hoping to get a little bit of equity, a little bit of a discount in there. And actually, that's a little something that, is personal to me. When I started my channel, people kind of thought of me as the raw guy person, and I didn't really buy slabs in any sort of significant way. I mean, I still don't really buy slabs in a significant way. I mean, you guys might disagree because I have slabs behind me, in my background, but the slabs behind me in my background are really most of all the slabs that I actually own. Most of my comic books are raw. And one of the reasons why I preferred raw at that time, when I started my YouTube channel, was because you could buy it for less than what it costs for you to pay the premium to get it graded. I mean, that was what I actually did, but things changed in COVID during 2021. Things changed in 2022 where people were selling raw comic books for the same prices that they were selling for the graded ones. Things were going so crazy that people had to pay the premium no matter what one you were buying, whether it be raw or graded. So, my buying behavior actually changed as I went into, that market. And now we're kind of back in that place where, you think to yourself, hey, it's not so competitive. Why do I need to pay the premium to get the graded version? The raw prices might have that discount, have that equity once again, since people are looking to, make sales and trying to, give discounts and stuff, you can go back to raw. Like there's no sense in buying the graded premium. And that could be one of the reasons why this model is actually showing the index going down so much in value. But I digress with that. Let's talk about bronze book values. 19% down, pretty significant there, 14% up and 19% non-sale. That is quite a lot for the Bronze Age Index. Again, I always talk about Bronze Age books, tend to be higher grades, 9.8s, 9.6s, 9.4s. Those are the ones that I evaluate. And it tends to be that, the Bronze Age buyers who are buying those types of books do like to buy them in slabs. And it's kind of interesting to see that there were so many non-sales here in this month. Now, let's look at the month by month for the Silver Age. This one I always think is very interesting. Of course, we're focusing on the purple line. That is the calendar year of 2024. There you see in September, going sideways from August. If we look at some of the other years, it tends to be that September, October, November are generally softer months, even in years where things went up. Like if we look at the yellow line, which is 2020, or the red line, which was 2019, when generally speaking, things were kind of on the incline, some of those months in September and November were generally down. So it kind of makes sense that there's some seasonality going on. December tends to be an up month going into January of next year, which tends to, sort of lead, comic books to increase in value over that next calendar year. So I'm kind of thinking that, we're definitely still looking like we are the 2023 line, which was last year, where we started the year a little bit higher, and then throughout the months we got lower and lower and lower. Now, the only question is 2025 going to look similar to 2024 and 2023, where, we just continue to hemorrhage, throughout the rest of the calendar year, or will there be an element for us ever turning the corner. Well, let me get through the trend line here before I get into that talking point. Again, I just show this for a visual for you guys. It is not drawn to scale, but it is interesting to think about. You know, if we look at the Silver Age and the Bronze Age here, you know, you would think that based on this trend line that starts at 2018, it's like we've kind of been under the trend line. But again, the trend line is only the trend line until it is no longer the trend line. You know, if we have to actually redraft it, which I did right here, you can actually see that, you know, maybe this is the trend line. Maybe we're actually exactly where we needed to be. And the last year or two, we've just been still above the trend line. So at one point, you know, the graph looked like this, but actually maybe the graph should have always looked like this. Maybe 2018 and 2019, we were actually on the higher side of that trend line. You know, and so it's kind of really interesting. It's like as new information comes in, as new data comes in, you know, things actually change, and your perspective on, you know, being a comic book bull versus a comic book bear can actually change depending on your outlook of what is going on in the comic book market. Now, let's give the bull case for a second. Okay, let's talk about that. Although, you know, maybe the bear case is actually the bull case and the bull case is actually the bear case, because people want comic books to go down in value so that they can buy those comic books that they actually want. You know what I mean? But let's talk about this for a second. Again, last month, I talked about how, you know, we're in that place where, you know, the Fed is starting to cut money and they're starting to cut interest rates, excuse me. And then we're going to start to get more money back into the system. You're not going to be able to just have your money sit in the bank and appreciate, you know, at 5%. Those rates are going to go down in the savings accounts and things like that. And people are going to have to start buying stuff. Now, again, I realize that, you know, I see your comments. I totally get it. A lot of people are like, you know, what people do with their, you know, $100,000 Batman 1 purchase has nothing to do with comic book sales that are $400. I totally get it. I'm just sort of spitballing with you guys and we're having a conversation here because I certainly don't have a crystal ball. I'm just sort of doing the Socratic method right here, talking about, you know, pros and cons of what could be and what couldn't be and making jokes about how now is the time to buy. We are on the same page about this, right? You guys know that I'm joking. I don't know if you guys know. I mean, I know, but I don't know if you guys know. I think people sometimes just see the thumbnail and they think like, oh, Swagglehoss is so worried about comic books going down in value. It's just info, guys. It's just for you. We're just talking here. We're just talking. Okay, let's finish this out. So, you know, there's going to be a place where people have to spend their money. And maybe that money goes into comic books and goes back into collectibles. You know, maybe that's how these markets behave because, again, it's really simple. You know, this is discretionary spending. So if people start to have, you know, the ability to buy things again, then this thing will go up. I mean, assuming people want to buy comic books. Again, maybe people don't want comic books. Maybe people only want to buy Pokemon cards right now. That's very, very possible. And I realize, okay, I know what's going on in the economy. I know all the political stuff people are saying, you know, gaslighting that the economy is great right now when gas is like, you know, $1 gazillion and no one can buy eggs anymore. I get it. I get it. I'm just sort of saying that these things tend to have, you know, implications. You know, if all of a sudden stocks go crazy and Bitcoin goes crazy, there's a lot of people that took their crypto money and crypto earnings and put it into collectibles. So something to be aware of, but doesn't really matter if you're somebody out there who is buying raw comic books. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about the update for this month? You know, again, this is just a metric that kind of measures, you know, graded sales. I have a very specific way in which I'm doing these calculations, which again is not a perfect system. It is not, you know, the be all end all. It's just one point of data. Actually, let me give you a second point of data before we wrap the video. I did want to talk about the GoCollect index, which I feel like now that GoCollect has its index, it's worth taking a look at in these monthly videos because, you know, again, more data is better. But what do we see here? You know, sorting this by the past month, we do see that Modern Age is down. All you have to know for their metric is, you know, if you see the number right here and you see a red arrow going down, that means that it's selling for less this month than it was last month. Copper Age also down, Bronze Age also down, Silver Age also down, Golden Age also up. Golden Age never goes down, guys. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then Bigger Spenders Club also down, which I think is probably a little bit of a concerning sign if you're somebody who is, you know, super like, well, just buy Golden Age because Golden Age always goes up. But if you're looking at the Big Spenders Club and you're thinking to yourself, well, even those big books, Detective 27, Action Comics 1, even those ones are going down. Well, that's kind of an issue because that kind of is like sort of a statement of, how confident are people willing to put big sums of money into those mega grails? Well, it looks like right now they'd rather have their money in different places. And so that's something to consider. And, I think Golden Age, one of the reasons why it does so well is that people, again, move money from one age into the next one. If you have like 5 FF48s, and you decide to sell them in this market right now so that you could go put your money into a Golden Age book. Well, is that really a statement that comic books never go down in value? I mean, if the people are just moving their money into Golden Age because it protects their current value within their collection, what does that mean in the future? Ultimately, you have to have more people coming into the space. You have to have more greater fools buying comic books. And if they don't, the smaller and smaller niche collectors that are still in this hobby, that are still buying each other's Golden Age comic books, eventually that will run out. Just some food for thought. I am just saying, we need people to buy Spider-Boy so that eventually they can move over to Schomburg. That's how it all works. Anyways, that's all for this video. That was me talking about the update for the comic book index for the month of September. What do you guys think is going on out there? What has been your experience going to comic book shows, comic book sales, comic book buying? Again, I know comic books are meant to be read. Again, this is just the one video on my one random channel where I talk about this because it's kind of interesting. Okay, buy what you love. I get it. All of the things. It's just info, guys. Take it for what it is. Anyways, that's all for this one. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next video.